An army marches on its stomach, Napoleon once said, and in Rome too, that's also true of your empire. Producing enough food is vital to keep your empire growing and your armies on the march. A positive food supply replenishes your troops and increases growth. The faster replenishment is important for both offense and defense. The faster you replenish your troops, the better you can repel counterattacks and the faster you can get your army back in the field. The increased growth allows you to expand your cities faster and have more buildings per region. It's really important. The more you have and the earlier you have them, the better. A negative food supply will cause you to suffer attrition in your armies. You'll see the red skull above your armies and troops will begin to desert. It also reduces your growth and it prevents the construction of some buildings in your settlements. My advice is to avoid a negative surplus at all costs. And even though food seems easy to come by in the early game, by the mid to late game, you'll quickly realize that you can never have too much food, but we'll come to that later. You can see your faction's total food surplus per turn underneath the minimap. Although individual provinces show their individual food surpluses, the only number that's important is the faction's food surplus, since provinces that have a negative surplus will automatically import food from your faction's surplus. The tooltip shows the impact, positive or negative, from your faction's food surplus. Now this goes up in increments up to the maximum of 20% replenishment and plus 5 growth, which is reached at a food surplus of 20. But you should aim to keep your food surplus above 30 at the very least to allow for new buildings, which can consume up to 12 food each, -4 for most level 3 buildings and -12 for level 4. Personally, I feel happier when it's above 50. So how do we produce enough food? There are lots of food producing buildings. Agriculture and livestock, fishing ports, forums, temples, and also grain and fishing towns. But forums and temples are too valuable for other things like public order, so make the most of your agriculture and fishing options. When it comes to building priorities, for me, number 1 is food, then public order, and then income. Why? Well, public order can be managed in many other ways, ultimately by force if necessary. And income is rarely an issue as the game progresses, especially if you keep up your trading. But food is only produced by your buildings. I recommend building every farm and port that you can. I also recommend building agricultural buildings rather than livestock. The extra income from livestock buildings is pretty insignificant, and building all agriculture means you can maximize your food production and focus on the boosts to agricultural income from tech and other buildings rather than splitting bonuses between agriculture and livestock. If you want to see how much income you're actually getting specifically from agriculture, go to the province details panel, mouse over the settlements, and you'll see the breakdown of income by the various types: agriculture, culture, industry, etc. Ports should always produce food unless you have a strategic need for producing naval units. If you do have a province with a high negative food surplus, you can exempt the province by turning off the tax checkbox. The province will become self-sufficient and its food will be set to 1. The downside is that the province will no longer provide income to your faction. One last thing to mention is edicts. In provinces that you fully control, you can issue the Bread and Games Edict, which will boost your food supply. Well, that's it for my guide to food. Enjoy and peace out.